Hi guys, it's Frankie from Frankie Watch. Good to see you all again. And this is an interesting video. I actually posted this one to my main channel, Frankie Tech, but I just realized that I think I uploaded it to the wrong channel. You'll see in this video, this is definitely more of a watch guys video, not really a tech video covering the Apple Watch Ultra. And so I want to share it here on Frankie Watch, where I do think it will be a bit more appreciated. So thanks for your views and enjoy the video. The Apple Watch Ultra. I think I may never use another watch again. But Frankie Tech, we're your traditional watches. We have automatic movements, quartz movements. You can't abandon us. I don't know. There's a lot of features here, and I think it's time to switch. But we have heritage, history, tradition. We've been around for hundreds of years. You can't do this, Frankie Tech. Please, no. I think I have a problem. Hi guys, it's Frankie from Frankie Tech. Good to see you guys again, and look what finally arrived yesterday evening for me, the Apple Watch Ultra. And this is the culmination of all Apple Watches that have existed before in this new crazy sized, rugged, and titanium build watch. I've been wearing this on the wrist for just the past hour, and it is definitely taking some getting used to. But the reality is, I'm a bit late to the game here to show you an unboxing and all that stuff. So I'm going to bring something a little bit unique here. As you know, I'm a big fan of tech, but I'm also a huge fan of traditional watches. This has become one of my biggest hobbies in the past year. So I thought it would be interesting to pit my Apple Watch Ultra next to my entire watch collection and do some comparisons and see how does this latest Ultra Apple Watch compare next to your traditional Seikos, Casios, Rolex, and more. Let's have a look. But first, I just want to share my initial impressions of this Apple Watch Ultra. Guys, this thing is a beast. And on my wrist, I think I can pull it off. We have a titanium build, 49mm case. And yes, we have a lot of different features like these crown guards for the digital crown. And we also have the emergency button on the side. A lot of other key features like the 100-meter water resistance, the dive computing capabilities, incredible battery life that this will enable on Apple Watch from 36 up to 60 hours with the upcoming November update. And the sapphire crystal on the front looks really nice. There's a lot to like here, guys, and I'm just scratching the surface of this watch. But here we go now. I want to compare this watch to a number of other watches in my collection, and to start we need some measurements. So this, my non-watch loving friends, is called a caliper. And what this does is it measures the dimensions of a watch, so we kind of see what we're working with here. So let's start with the actual diameter. So as you can see, from one end to the other, we're at 43.6 millimeters. And this is a measurement in watches called the lug to lug. And this measurement basically shows you the distance, the length of the watch itself, 53 millimeters. So that is a pretty chunky beast. But if we measure to the case itself, we're at 48.8 millimeters. You know, that's pretty standard for pretty large size watches overall. And of course, the thickness. This is one I've been waiting to measure for the longest time. Let's have a look and see what it is. 13 millimeters, guys. Considering how chunky people are talking about that this Apple Watch is, you know, in the world of traditional watches, 13 millimeters is actually not that bad, especially given all the diving and other rugged capabilities of this watch. Surprisingly, the Apple Watch Ultra is slimmer than I expected it to be. Yes, that's right, it is slimmer than I expected it to be. Wow. And so when thinking about which watch I wanted to compare first with this Apple Watch, I want to start with one that maybe you guys are familiar with, a G-Shock. And what better G-Shock to compare this to than the classic square, the G-Shock DW5600. This is the iconic G-Shock, guys, that I'm sure many of you own or have seen before. And look at that size comparison. The Apple Watch is pretty massive next to this one. Looking at the thickness, you can also see, though, it's not that much thicker. And the DW5600 is just, I think, under 13 millimeters. So they're pretty much the same in terms of thickness here. Another G-Shock that I absolutely love are the Casios. And these have come out in the past couple years and have been super popular. This is the Bluetooth version. And as you can see, the Apple Watch Ultra next to even a Casio is pretty large by comparison. And this G-Shock is actually one of the thinnest G-Shocks around at 12.8 millimeters. But there you can see the Apple Watch Ultra looks pretty decent in terms of the thickness. Although I will say, you can see the lug to lug, you can see the length of the watch. Once you count all the way to the edge here, they're actually pretty similar in terms of how they would wear on the wrist. And there you see them guys next to each other. I mean, for all you G-Shock lovers out there, there's quite a difference between these two. But honestly, it's not that much bigger than wearing a G-Shock. I mean, these are pretty large watches, but the Apple Watch, I think it's just because of the curves, it feels even larger on the wrist than this Casio from G-Shock. And here's a fun watch that I wanted to compare Apple Watch Ultra to, one that has taken the watch world by storm. Yes, it is the Moon Swatch. And this watch was launched from Swatch earlier this year and was just bananas. There were lines all around the world. If you weren't following that, it was crazy. And this is pretty much evoking what I have right over there, which is the original Moon Watch. And so you can see there, next to the typical dimensions of a Moon Watch, the Apple Watch Ultra is actually pretty similar. Even going to the thickness, there's not that much difference in thickness. And the Moon Swatch, I think, is just around 13.1 millimeters in thickness. And so there you see, guys, despite its massive size, the Apple Watch Ultra is actually manageable in terms of its wearing dimensions next to something like the Moon Swatch. And just want to quickly pause to mention this Alpine strap is fantastic. I think this is one of the best quality straps that I've ever seen from Apple. It just feels very comfortable on the wrist and it's trying to evoke the NATO straps you typically see in the watch world. But let's keep this going here and bring in a crowd favorite in the watch world, the SKX 009. Guys, this one is legend status in the watch world, and here it is next to the Apple Watch Ultra. And the dimensions of this legendary Seiko, 42 millimeters in diameter, and it is also 46 millimeters lug to lug. But guess which one of these is thicker? If you guessed SKX, you are right, guys. And look at that, at 13.5 millimeters, this SKX is 0.5 millimeters thicker. You have a slight bulge here given the sensors on this watch, but you also have the same kind of thing here on the case back of the SKX. And you know, that's just standard watchmaking, guys. These types of cases will sit into your wrist and you won't notice them, but there you see them, guys. Apple Watch Ultra, as thick as people are talking about it being, it's not that thick when you compare it to traditional divers in the watch world. But now let's go to Citizen, guys. I've been a big fan of Citizen watches, and one of the craziest Citizen watches I picked up recently was this. The EcoZilla, it is called. It is a massive dive watch, and I think of all the watches in my collection, this is probably the one that gives the Apple Watch Ultra a run for its money in terms of just sheer massive size and dimensions. Take a look at the thickness of this beast at well over 17 millimeters in thickness. This EcoZilla, I mean, it is a great watch. It's 300 meters of water resistance, as you can see on the dial, but my gosh, when I wear this thing, it is just felt on the wrist. And I think the Apple Watch Ultra is just showing you here, yes, it is only 100 meters of water resistance, but at the same time, guys, most people really don't get to even 100 meters or 200 meters. Most divers, other than the Submariner, which we'll be seeing in a moment, is also 300 meters. Generally speaking, it is overkill, and this watch is the embodiment of overkill, but I still absolutely love it. And now let's go to some of the big guns. The Moon Watch, we can pass because we've seen the Moon Swatch, but for all you guys interested, here's a quick just look of them next to each other. Yeah, you notice also another thing, guys, that circular watches versus squared watches have a very different wearing dimension. These do feel bigger on the wrist, and the dimensions make it seem like it's going to be giant. But when you actually compare next to circular watches, the 49 millimeter diameter of this Apple Watch Ultra is really not that different when you compare it to the 42 millimeter of this Omega Speedmaster Professional Moon Watch. And now here we go, guys. I think I'm probably one of the first channels on YouTube to put these two next to each other. The Rolex Submariner reference 126610LV. This is what's called the Kermit or the Starbucks, and this watch I think represents the ultimate iconic diver. And yes, this is also 300 meters of water resistance. But there you see them next to each other, 41 millimeters in terms of diameter versus 49. Yes, it is quite a bit larger, but is it really that much bigger than the Sub? I don't think so. And when you put them next to each other, this is where the Sub does show its amazing engineering at 12.5 millimeters in thickness next to the Apple Watch Ultra at 13 plus. Yeah, that's why the Sub is so iconic, because it is really able to give you that amazing 300 meters of water resistance in a watch that is super slim on the wrist. And here you see the Apple Watch Ultra and the Rolex Submariner on the wrist next to each other. Yeah, it's a pretty noticeable difference. But there's one thing I need to mention, guys, and the materials of this watch do make a difference. The Apple Watch Ultra is titanium, while something like the Rolex Submariner is stainless steel. And so what that means is this watch tips the scales at just under 150 grams, while the Apple Watch, because it is titanium, weighs around 74 grams. And once you factor that in, you'll realize that yes, despite the fact that it is a massive watch, it actually wears very comfortably on the wrist, feels super light, and it's pretty much lighter than any of the stainless steel watches that I own. And here's the Apple Watch Ultra next to my beloved and first Rolex I ever purchased, the Rolex Oyster Perpetual 41 millimeters in green. And yeah, I mean, it is quite a jump between these. And yes, this OP41 is also 100 meters of water resistance. That is kind of the beauty of mechanical watches. They're able to deliver, especially with Rolex, this level of water resistance. You can go swimming, you could go diving with this thing, and it fits so much slimmer on the wrist at 12 millimeters versus 13 plus. But you know, not that much thicker if you really look at them there. But yes, massive difference in dimensions next to these two. And last but not least, we compare the Apple Watch Ultra next to the icon, probably the most hyped Rolex of the past couple years, the Rolex Daytona Panda. Look at this dimension difference here, 40 millimeters versus 49. One, I think, looks pretty elegant on the wrist, and this is definitely a tool. This is an adventurous tool, but that's kind of the appeal of the Apple Watch Ultra. The whole point of this watch is to bring these crazy features that you would use on the go, whether you're hiking, doing marathons, doing Ironmans, swimming down 100 meters, and you need a dive computer. You know, you can go diving with the Rolex Daytona. And the Daytona is at just under 12.5. I think it's around 12.2 millimeters in thickness. So when you see it here next to the Apple Watch, yes, it definitely is slimmer. But there's one other thing that this Rolex has, which is this almost boxed or elevated sapphire crystal. And if you've noticed, all of my really favorite watches, all the Rolexes here, they all have flat sapphire crystals. That is why I was so excited when the Apple Watch Ultra was announced with a flat sapphire crystal. The reality is, guys, flat sapphire I think is more resistant to breakage or to issues, cracks, versus the traditional Apple Watch type of screen. Look at my Apple Watch Series 3. This thing hit the edge of the display, completely shattered, and this is why I picked up the Apple Watch Ultra, because all of my regular Apple Watches with the Ion X glass have been completely totaled. I might replace the screen on this one, but just knowing I have a flat sapphire crystal, which if you notice also has a slightly elevated lip here to protect it from bangs and, you know, daily use. This is a game changer when you compare this watch to traditional watches. And I think for any of you guys out there in the watch world, having a flat sapphire crystal on the Apple Watch Ultra is a game changer as well. So that's it for this video, guys. A very different one here because, let's face it, you've seen a million unboxings and you've seen a million first impressions of the Apple Watch Ultra. I wanted to bring something different to the table here from my watch lover's perspective and share some of these amazing watches. I've never done this here on the main channel. But now to answer the question, how does this Apple Watch Ultra fit into my collection? And this thing is going to get a lot of wrist time, but I can't abandon my passion of regular mechanical watches as well. All in all, guys, the Apple Watch Ultra to me really represents the first ultimate cool smartwatch. And yes, I know there's Garmin's and other ones out there, but if you're in the Apple Watch camp, this is an incredible watch. This is bringing so many features to the table. But how is this Apple Watch Ultra gonna fit in? Am I going to abandon all of my beautiful traditional watches for this amazing new release from Apple? I don't think so. So what are we gonna do? I think we will wear both. But hit me up in the comments. What are your thoughts on the Apple Watch Ultra, guys? And how do you now see it in comparison next to these other watches you may have either purchased or owned? I'm definitely loving this thing and I'm gonna need to test it out. But I think it is an interesting perspective to how this compares with the traditional watch market. This is really the way Apple is marketing this Apple Watch Ultra. And you know, even the unboxing experience does remind you of getting a traditional watch box with little paperwork, little booklets talking about the watch. I think this may be the first Apple Watch that serious watch collectors are going to be interested in. So I hope this video was helpful, but hit me up in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. And that's it for this video. If you liked it, give me that thumbs up. And if you love the content of Frankie Tech, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon for future updates. Some more great content coming soon, guys, but I'm going to spend some time with this one. It is a beast, but it is a very useful, functional beast, so I can't wait to test it out. So that's it, and this is where I leave you by saying, this is Frankie Tech signing off. Have a good one. Frankie Tech, Frankie Watch. Frankie Tech, Frankie Watch. Well, I guess we can be both. Oh yeah.